As a Scotland travel blogger and lifelong Scotsman, I have grown quite attached to this little country. But there's one thing that stands out above all else when I think of what I'm most drawn to, and that is Scotland's mountains. There's something about them. They have a majesty, they have a presence, they have a melancholy, and I'll touch on that later. But for now, for this third Scotlanders video, I'm putting together a little series of clips from mountaintops. There's some drone footage in there, and they will all look at the great Scottish outdoors. Fantastic walking opportunities in there for you. But I do want to hear your comments throughout. I'd like to know some tips and suggestions. If you have any questions about Scotland's mountains, I would gladly answer them if I can. And I hope that this proves useful for your own travels in Scotland, when you can grab a slice of this little bit of magic for yourself. And I think I'm going to kick off this journey around Scotland's great outdoors here in the Angus Glens. This is the approach into Corrie at the head of Glen Clova, just south of the Cairngorms National Park limit. A beautiful woodland walk to start with. There is the option to end at this point here and just take in this incredible natural amphitheatre that surrounds you. You can continue straight on up into the gorge there for two of Scotland's most southerly Munros, or you can just simply end the walk here and consider this a fabulous introduction to what the Highlands have to offer. But granted, when you think of the Scottish Highlands, you're probably thinking more towards the likes of Glencoe and this drone flight here, which passes by the Pap of Glencoe, which overlooks Glencoe village itself. There's stunning Loch Maree over to the left there, and Glencoe is without doubt one of the best areas for walking in Scotland. There's some incredible peaks that suit most abilities, and I think few could argue that it is pretty much Scotland at its most beautiful. This is the summit of Buachaille Etive Beag, one of many great walks in this area. But there's also further north, going up into Sutherland, and the remote and desolate areas that you can find up here. This drone flight going over this little loch in here was taken the night before my ascent of Suilven, which is the distinctive Sugarloaf Mountain, the iconic hill of this area on the right hand side of the screen there. It's a 2.5 hour walk in and walk out. It's about 8 hours up and down this guy. It's not particularly difficult, but it is long, and for me that was a bucket lister that I managed to achieve just this spring. And what about that feeling when you get to the top, the final few steps as you summit on a Scottish mountain? This is the Isle of Harris here in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland, the Western Isles. Next stop Canada in terms of how far west you can go. And as much as I like to think that the views at the top of every Scottish mountain are stunning, visibility can often be impaired, so this is probably quite a typical example of what you might find up top. Here we have the Cobbler. Just an hour or so north of Glasgow, Ben Arthur is one of Scotland's most popular walks. Although it's not a Munro, it falls just under the 3,000 feet limit. To be called a Munro is one of Scotland's best, there's no doubt about it, and a great one for families. And that is perhaps the best thing about Scotland's mountains, that they are for everyone. Glen Torridon here. Again, we're back up in Sutherland. There is nothing around. Utter solitude, silence, and peace. And this was one of the most peaceful memories that I have from last year's walking that I did in the Highlands. It's Glencoe village, a short walk from the village to Glencoe Lochan here. An early morning walk. And I think the word immaculate springs to mind at this point. And if that was immaculate, then this is probably dramatic. The ridge, your classic Scottish mountain ridge. Barren, ancient landscapes. Incredible geology. This is the Suilven summit. I was talking about Suilven earlier. And as you can see, there is nothing in any direction. No towns, no villages, no camper vans, no tourists. And that is the classic image of a Scottish mountain summit. And I would say your average hike in Scotland is probably around 5 hours. Many can be done in half a day. Others could take a full day or require overnight camping. And that's all about experience and knowing the best regions to base yourself and the equipment to take. But in truth, it's hard to go wrong, and as long as you have basic navigational aids, plenty of food and water, and have anticipated that it will probably rain at some point, chances are the hills of Scotland are not going to be the most intimidating that you will face in life if you're a person of the outdoors. The hills are relatively small compared to some of the more extreme parts of the world. But I think there's no question that they are some of the most beautiful. And that applies whether it's the Isle of Skye that we just saw, the famous Quiraing, or here, Buachaille Etive Mor, another of Scotland's most iconic peaks. And what is it about Scotland in particular that's so special? After all, there's great hikes all around the world, and I've been fortunate enough to travel and do quite a few of them. But there is something about Scotland that's got that little bit of magic. And when I think about it, I think it comes down to a combination of the history, the melancholy of Scotland's past, and merging that with the rawness of these empty landscapes that are particularly prominent in the Highlands. That's what's uniquely different about Scotland, and that's what gives it its edge. And I must admit, I do love coastal vistas. This is looking over North Berwick here, Berwick Law's summit, out over the east coast of Scotland, a beautiful sunny day, towards Bass Rock out there, as you can see. Or here, back on the Isle of Harris, in South Harris this time, and its favourite beaches, the likes of Scarista and its turquoise waters. Or something more dramatic, in Caithness, Duncansby Head here. This one is from the Isle of Barra, another one in the Outer Hebrides, one of the southernmost islands in the Outer Hebrides. An early morning walk to Heaval, the highest point on the island, with immaculate, stunning views across the water-strewn landscape. This is Isle of Skye, Loch Coruisk, with a classic Scottish island boat and the promise of all that can bring. Because without the water and without the coastline, Scotland simply wouldn't be the same. One of the most common questions you're going to get about the Scottish mountains are, can you hike here in winter? And I have to say there is something pretty special about a snow-covered peak in the Highlands. The answer in a word is yes, absolutely. You can hike relatively safely in the winter. The conditions, of course, are very weather dependent. You have to take more precautions, you have to bring the right gear, possibly crampons and ice axes. It's not for the inexperienced, but there's no question that it can be done, and that for many, particularly those with a bit more know-how of the mountains, winter hiking is actually when the Scottish Highlands are at their very best. And why do we hike? Certainly there's the feeling of immense satisfaction at having reached the summit, but also of course the views along the way. That's the reward throughout your trip and at the end when you get a fantastic panorama across an incredible landscape. But there's also the social aspect as well, the people that you're with. It's a great way to bond and get to know people if you're hiking with them. Also, if you're going on your own, what a great way to escape the maelstrom, the stresses of everyday life, and just to switch off and embrace the great outdoors. But for whatever reason you do it for, I think you'll agree, it's totally and uniquely addictive. And all you need to do is sit for a second at the likes of Loch Maree here and drink it all in to see exactly what I mean by this. How can anyone possibly ever have enough of these kind of moments. The gentle lapping of water on a Scottish Highland loch, or the strolls that you can get, the endless walking routes that you can find in the Trossachs just to the north of Glasgow, or the Ochils to the north of Stirling, these hills being where the boundary line between the lowlands and the highlands really take effect. Extremely straightforward, extremely rewarding, and a great accompaniment to the bigger mountains that you'll find on the likes of Skye, and even going out further west to the Outer Hebrides, where the drama really is at its most impactful, and I have to say, endlessly memorable. So hopefully you can see that Scotland has some of the most diverse walking opportunities in the world, whether that's the far northwest and the drama that you'll find in Skye or Sutherland, the Assynt area, it's incredible, or whether it's the gentle valleys of the Scottish borders. But I put it back to you, what are your favourite areas to walk in Scotland? What really does it for you? Tell me in the comments, do subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for the Scotlanders' next video when we'll be looking at the Scotland-based TV sensation Outlander.